Hi everyone, welcome to Tea Time with Tasha. I'm Tasha Berner, and I'm proud to represent Coastal San Diego in the State Assembly. Today's guest represents the 33rd Senate District in the state of California. That's Long Beach, the LBC, right. And also is chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus. Welcome, Senator Lena Gonzalez. I'd offer you tea, but you already have coffee in your mug, so we'll just jump right in. Let's start by going back to when you were a little girl. What was life like growing up for you?
Well, thanks so much for having me on. This is an amazing podcast in the Assembly. So glad to be here. I grew up in North Long Beach, and so for me, I grew up with a mom who immigrated here from Mexico, but worked her way through, the corporate world, and then my dad, who was a truck driver. I remember being a little girl, getting into his truck, and just, living a very middle-class life, but just feeling, very, very supported by my family, but just already as such a young kid knowing that there were so many ills in the world that I wanted to take care of. It was an interesting time, but my parents were very politically and community involved, so I was really appreciative of that.
And so when you go back to your mom and your dad, how do you think your family's story has shaped the way you show up today as a senator? Because you're a pretty badass senator, in my opinion.
Thank you. It takes one to know one. I appreciate you, my friend and colleague. My parents were just inherently community driven. My dad was a union truck driver, so naturally there were, scuffles here and there with management, but he was always striking and representing the folks that he worked with rank and file. And so I was on the strike line as a little girl many times with him, or my mom, who is just naturally outspoken and bold, which I feel comes out in a lot of my legislation and a lot of the work I do. She cared so much about other people and just lived a lot of times outside of herself, just figuring out like the ills of the world and how she can shape them. But I heard everything in life. And then my aunts, who were very politically involved, one of them worked for Tom Bradley, the mayor of Los Angeles at the time. I was in his office many times as a little girl, had no idea who the heck he was, but now realize oh my gosh, I was around this very politically community-driven family that really cared about, their neighbors.
And I think, having served with you for so many years, you see that in your legislation. You see that a lot of your legislation is about caring for others, helping others. And you're the chair of the Latino Legislative Caucus. So what does that mean for you personally, especially right now?
It is such an honor to be in this position. We have, we started 50 plus years ago as a Latino caucus with 5 members. Now, 50 plus years later, we're 38 members, 35 legislators, 3 constitutional officers, and I always tell people we represent every corner of the state of California now. And it's really exciting to be in this role. And last year, especially leading the caucus in a time that was Trump 2.0, it was much more vicious than the first Trump, towards our communities, being kidnapped, racially profiled, being told that you weren't good enough because of the job you did. And I see a lot of that in the family that I grew up with. My father was a truck driver. My mom has very brown skin. And thinking about my parents when I'm out there legislating or representing people, right now feels like an honor, but also just really, really challenging. But also just knowing that so many people look like my own family, and I want to make sure that they feel protected through legislation, that they feel heard, and more importantly, that they know government is there to work for them.
Yeah. I think knowing government is there to work with them in a time of attack is so important. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this podcast. So you think about all of that, you think about the Latinos Caucus's legislative priorities this year. What do you see the Latino Caucus focusing on?
One core issue we have always been, and it's just been steadfast throughout the 50 plus years, through the 5 that started, through then more members throughout the 50 years, has been immigration. Regardless if you are a moderate Democrat from Central Valley that is Latino, or you're a coastal member, or you're from the Imperial or San Diego or the Bay Area, the one common theme and thread for the Latino Caucus has been support for immigration. Whether it's farm workers, whether it's janitors, whether it's a business owner, it's all the same for us. And for us, it's our one common theme. And so we have been steadfast. Last year, we authored over a dozen bills to safeguard schools and hospitals, requiring judicial warrants, requiring demasking and identification of these individuals who are out in our streets kidnapping our families and relatives. And then this year, you're starting to see the same thing. How do we help rapid responders from not being doxxed? How do we stop the less than lethal weapons from being deployed against children and people in our communities? So a lot of this has been defense work, but now we're also on the offense to knowing that we've got to, we've sort of know the game plan, it's been vicious, but now we've got to be on the offense as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to protect our communities, And when we look at the demographic shifts in California, how do you think Latino leadership is shaping the future of the state?
Well, you see it. I mean, it's so apparent, right? We've got a pro tem, Monique Limon. We've got a speaker, Robert Rivas. We've got myself as the chair of the Latino Caucus. We have a U.S. Senator, our very first, Alex Padilla. And what we all see in this leadership is, yes, we are putting forward, impeccable legislation that will protect our communities. We are putting forward the budget requests to, continue investments in our communities, but still, it seems so dire because this administration, the Trump administration, has been evil, just completely evil. You've seen U.S. Senator Alex Padilla being thrown to the ground. It doesn't matter your title or what you look like or who you are, they're still attacking our communities, even at the highest levels. So, but what it means is that we're going to continue to collaborate, we're going to continue to be strong and let those without a title know that they're here and that they're going to continue to be heard, and we're going to continue to legislate to protect them regardless of the vicious attacks against us.
And that's so important. And you transition perfectly into my next question. When you think about young Latinas, when you think about first generations of students, when you think about kids from working class families who are listening to this podcast, what do you think they need to know? What would you tell them? Or what would you tell your younger self? You can choose which way you want to answer.
I love this question. Well, I think what we want to tell them, and when I say we, I mean the Latino Caucus. When I say we, I mean Latino and Latina leaders that are in legislative positions or at the local level. We want people to know that we are just like them. I am who I represent. What I always tell people, I am the daughter of a truck driver. I'm the daughter of an immigrant. I'm a mom of 3 sons who look Latino and are also feeling really scared right now because they don't know what their last names, one of them speaks Spanish, and so it's like we don't know what they don't know, and they're really uncertain on what that all means for them in the coming years. And so I want regular people and average Californians to know that we're there for them and that we're also facing the same challenges just as we are as parents, as we are as daughters and sons of immigrants, and as we are facing the same life experiences oftentimes, that we are there for them.
Yeah. What a great message. That's a very empowering message for young people. I always remind people that even, especially when I talk to young people who can't vote yet, I said, you may not be able to vote, but you have a voice, and we listen. And that's what I always hope people take away. And that was your answer was a more in-depth.
Well, I tell that to people that are undocumented too. You may not be able to vote, but you still have a voice. I still represent you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so profound. So that's great.
It is. And I think we don't say it enough.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to go to rapid fire questions.
Oh.
So it's just, you get a simple answer.
Okay.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
I know. What is the go-to restaurant in your district?
Amatoli.
Podcast or playlist?
Playlist.
I know.
I have to.
Playlist. Biggest pet peeve in meetings?
I would say looking at phones.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, just so you know now, don't ever look at your phone around me.
Now I know.
But I also need to check myself too, because I need to not do that.
If you could solve one problem in the world with a snap of your finger, what would it be?
I would just say people need to be kind. Stop being a jerk. Be kind to your neighbor, regardless of who they are.
So you've heard it from Lena Gonzalez, be kind to your neighbor. It starts with you. So want to thank you so much, Senator, for being here. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, and share with everyone you know. Also, feel free to let us know who you would like to see in our podcast next. And thank you for tuning in, and see you at my next tea time.
See you.
See you.